Put that in the car.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
Did you consider having a bat? Daddy didn't have that trait.
You must have got that from Mummy's side. Plummer's big show, sad show. Drapey is having his Achilles reconnected as we speak, I think, or he's probably pushing that little button where you get some painkillers and the nurse comes and gives you some jelly beans and some toasted sandwiches. Drapey, I hope you got through well. That was very sad. Chom has had the courage to front up after the Roos was shithouse again, and they're copying it from pillar to post. We're going to do a mini press conference, get to the bottom of a lot of other shit,
and then we've
got just a wonderful guest.
Yeah, we do.
Is it part B or part A? I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm a bit fatigued from a lot of calling on the weekend. But anyway, we're going to start musical for Drapey because he's in my heart tonight.
Is this the karaoke version?
I hope so.
Oh, God.
Do you know this?
Can you squiggle the mouse? No, I told you I don't.
I haven't got
Squiggle
words.
the mouse so I can see if it's karaoke, please.
Giving you all of my heart.
It's definitely not.
Hey, Mick.
But, oh, God, hang on. Let's turn Rod Stewart off.
I'm Josh. Yeah, let's go.
Oh, brilliant.
Let's start. How are you going? Hey, Mick, how are you?
Good, mate. Yourself? How you going?
Lovely to meet you.
Nick Butler.
Nick, how you going?
Good, thank you. Moff, you've been in good form. You got us a 5-time premiership player a couple of weeks ago. That went off, and you might have risen the stakes again with the longest-serving coach of all time, Hall of Famer, toughest teak player, 3-time premiership coach, Mick Malthouse. He's on 200 plus. So, g'day, Mick. Thank you for coming in.
It is a pleasure, lads. Good to be among fellow footballers and those that think alike. Not sure. I don't know what to expect here.
No, many podcasts. Obviously, you're all over the media at the moment, writing columns, ABC, and you've certainly been in front of plenty of cameras plenty of cameras in your career. How many podcasts?
Not that I wanted to.
No. You've done many. This is probably the newest form of media. How many of these have you done?
Not many. I did write to my daughter and said I was doing I call it a pod. I didn't call it a podcast. I called it pod something, and she's gone, do you mean a podcast? I went, yes, it's probably right. So,
D Swans, you might have had to have gone on that. Swanee and Friends?
Yeah, I reckon I've been with Swanee. Yeah, you got to remember, short-term memory loss. I don't admit too much these days. Yeah, Swanee's, well, you know what Swanee's like, you know. Get you in.
Yeah. He's...
BT, I do one for BT. That's roughly it, really. Actually, I should say I've done one for Christy, my daughter, so one or two for her, in fact.
You did mention
on
Mick,
the freebies.
Yes.
You did mention when you come in, I think you said, is this Buckley's place, is it? I'd love to get into a bit of his time in the game. Do you remember him much as a player? Do you have any tidbits?
He didn't have a long time to remember him. so it didn't take much of my brain.
Yeah.
No, he's a ripping little bloke for a start off. It was trying to find a position for him more than anything else. I mean, I wasn't at Carlton for a long time before they sacked me, so it didn't give me a lot of time either. But he walked in as a quick half forward mid.
Yeah.
We played him a few times. Then I put him on the back line, and he was a good, long kicking mid back line player that could put the ball over the top of mids and into the forward line. So I thought there was a real niche in there. And I don't know who lasted the longest. He might have outdid me at Carlton. I'm not sure.
2018. You went to the Giants for a year or two.
He had two, yeah.
Oh, he might have finished 2018.
Oh, see, I was well gone by that stage.
Right,
he's one of the players who got rid of me.
He's probably bad now, then.
Yeah, probably.
We'll go back in time in a moment, Mick, but at the moment you're still involved a fair bit. Are you still enjoying being involved in footy, albeit in a media sense?
I like footy. I'm not 100% sure I'm really in love with the game at the moment. I just see so many things that I just like to get hold of and squeeze around. I love the EPL. I love rugby union, particularly international games. And I love the Six Nation in Europe. So I like a lot of sports that probably have contributed to my coaching.
Yeah.
So I come to a conclusion at a very young age as a coach that if you think that you've done it at AFL or then it was VFL, where do you go to? Because we are so unique, and you get to a stage where how do I get better?
Yeah.
Because you've learnt off the masters. I was very fortunate. I had Jeans and Hafey as coaches.
Yeah.
So you learn off these blokes. And I had 3 other coaches that were all premiership coaches, as in premiership player coaches, right? And then you get to a stage where you go, right, what's next? So until you start following other sports, you're not going to grow. So I learned that very young. And I'm pleased I did, because it meant that I wasn't sort of just whack into football and go, well, I can't do anymore, and this is the game, and it's going to stand still. No, I'd like to think that we contributed to the game to advance to where it is today.
What's the main thing that's grinding your gears about the game today?
There's a lot of things.
There must be one that really it just gets.
Well, I think it's a combination that comes back to nothing's fair in life.
No.
So the AFL, I don't expect it to be fair, but I expect it to take steps to make it as even as you possibly can, because we're looking at a whole host of supporters all over Australia. Forget about the world. You know, we are basically an Australian sport, and that's as far as it'll grow. So how do you even it up? And I'll be right out there. I do not like father-son for a start off. I think it just aids the club. It's got the people that can produce the most sons. I don't like free agency in its current form, because it only aids the top clubs. The draw is flawed, because you've got 18 sides trying to go into 23. Why the 23 goes is more remarkable. But anyway,
There's a few, yeah.
how does that work out? I watched 4 sides play in the Barossa Valley. Fantastic. I thought the concept was outstanding.
Yeah, we
South
played
Australia
there.
was terrific. The people were magnificent. I watched 4 sides play at 12:30. So I watched again those sides play the next week. One side, Richmond, did very well until 3/4 time. Then they couldn't scratch themselves. And I reckon because you can't play in that heat and not have an adverse effect. Gold Coast didn't look like they'd started. Then they started to come home.
Yep.
So why 12?
Roos struggled too.
Yeah.
Well,
We fell away late.
yeah.
34 degrees is the hottest game I ever played. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, then you fell away very late in
Very
the first
hard.
quarter and
Yeah.
the next go.
Yeah.
That's true.
You're not wrong.
So the other one was Fremantle. Fremantle didn't play anywhere near the capacity I saw them play.
Yeah.
Now, okay, other clubs played in the heat as well, but different times. So I just want to be reminded that are we looking after the players, or are we looking after the TV stations to get those games at that time? So the whole lot together, if you keep adding on bits and pieces, we're not going to ever have a really fair system that gives, because I think the membership at Richmond is probably about the same value as the membership at North Melbourne. Let's say, I don't know, let's say $200 a year. So why shouldn't Richmond, North Melbourne, or how does Smith end up at Geelong and not end up at, say, Richmond?
Yeah.
Because my take on it is that when a player signs that sheet to say I am going to be a draftee and I will go wherever, we know that a lot of players don't want to go forever, they sign it, and technically speaking, that is restraint of trade. So it's against the law. So if you're going to have a draft and you've signed it, you are saying, I'm going to abide by the AFL rules and not the rules of the land, which is restraint of trade, because you might want to go and play for who? Fremantle.
Better opportunity somewhere, yeah.
Yeah, So the next stage is, okay, you do 4 or 5 or 6 years, whatever it is, and restraint and a free agency comes in. You go, I want to go to Geelong, Collingwood, because players can only think one year in advance. They see these clubs up there. They're the ones I want to go to because I want to win a premiership. I don't blame them for that. But the bottom clubs lose them. And I say that those players should go into a draft. Now, I mightn't want to take the best player because he might be a ruckman. I've got 2 young ruckmans coming through. I might want to take a mid. I want to take a half back. So you still got a choice. You play with your own club and you take what's in front of you. Most players will say, no, Barley, I'm out of that. But I'm looking at a universal thing, not just a selfish one club. Here we go, and we're going to make the 8 again because I'm going to drag up him and I'm going to drag up him. And the top, you look at it and you go, it's only the top side's going to do this. Have a look at the bottom sides. They end up with players I'm not for one moment saying that Parker's not a good player,
Yeah.
but he's right at the end of his career.
Yeah.
Caleb Daniel is a good player, but he's not going to make the difference between, say, those top sides winning or losing a premiership. The third one,
Jack Darling. Would you have them go into the draft pool if they wanted to move clubs?
if
Is
they
that what
want
you're
to,
proposing?
yes,
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Is that done anywhere else in the world? Have you brought that from a different sport, or is that
No, I know I
pure?
haven't, because again, we tend to hang on to the coattails of what happens in America.
Yeah.
But all I'm saying is that is still, again, restraint
Yeah.
of trade. What I've recommended
course,
is constraint of trade. So you can go to the law and go, no, I'm not going to I'm going to whichever club you want to
Yeah.
go to. But by signing that initial page to someone
Yeah.
you drafted, you have to be part
Open
of
to
the
anywhere.
AFL, whatever the rules they set up.
Yeah. Now, I want to take you back, Mick, too. That's awesome insight and unbelievably interesting. I want to take you back to your West Coast days. You've been a part of two really successful teams in Collingwood and West Coast. And you mentioned before there you watched a lot of other sports. Did you watch those growing up and as you got into coaching? And did you implement anything from, say, the EPL or American football into your days while you were at West Coast?
And when I got to West Coast, it was the biggest indicator of why I knew. So the first year, we went from, when I took over West Coast, we were 11th
Yeah.
in 1989.
Yeah.
So in 1999, my first year, we finished in the 6, whatever it was. Went home for Christmas and, ran into a few people, and things weren't too bad. Some spoke, some didn't. Talk to us as football people.
Yeah.
Next year, we played off. So went back home for Christmas. No one spoke to me. I thought, I'm gaining nothing out of this. I'm not that bright. So I don't know where I can take this club to, even though we'd finished, let's say, 3rd or 4th and then runners up. So suggesting it to the board, and they said, what do you want to do? And I said, look, I've got to travel. I've just got to go and see how other clubs operate, other sports operate. And so that got me going into that area.
Yeah.
And then at Collingwood, about 2007, I reckon halfway through the year, we were probably 9th or 10th halfway through the year. And I thought, we're going to finish 9th or 10th. I'm just not happy finishing 9th or 10th. I've looked at, hadn't seen live,
Yeah.
ice hockey.
Yeah,
And
okay.
I thought, just see these players, they just come on with such power. They come off, they're off within a minute and a half, 2 minutes. They come on with great power. I thought, I just wonder. So I got my fitness coordinator, midfield coach, and said, right, let's explore the fact of trying to get as many of our mids and high forwards rotating through. I think we only had B-grade mids in those days.
Yeah.
Swan, Pendlebury, and these blokes. And don't get me wrong, I know they've become very much great A-graders, but they were probably B-graders, just learning the code, learning about their bodies and so forth and where to go. So we went from 44 rotations to averaging 100 by the end of the year.
Yeah, wow.
So we're probably going at 120.
Yeah.
But the thing was, my players accepted it. And we played West Coast in Perth in a final,
Yeah.
which we drew and then won, and we won running away.
Yeah.
And I thought, these boys are understanding why we've done this, because all of a sudden we were attacking A-graders tired. So even though it was our B-graders coming on, our B-graders were just absolutely smashing these
Had it
blokes
in the tank.
late in their game.
Yeah.
So we ate into it, and we lost the prelim by a kick to the eventual premiers. And I relate that back to ice hockey.
Yeah.
So there's a lot
Incredible.
so there's a lot of things. I have rugby runs. Where does rugby runs come from? Clearly,
Yeah, who would guess?
I had a wing back, and that was let Matura run forward, let Wayne Waring run back. So you just covered all the time. Dougie Hawkins run back, and this other winger run forward. So wing back come from soccer.
Even the size of the players, Mick, I grew up when you were coaching those flags. I was probably 10, 12, getting into my footy. They were big boys. Did you... It looked like you guys sort of adopted the weight training and professional body development quicker than most. Where did you get that idea from?
So when I arrived there, the weights were just incidentals. It was, again, I don't mind saying this, and I won't name the person, but I said to him how important are weights. Well, if they want to do them, they do them. I said, mate, no, that does not work for me. That's like saying to you, well, listen, you can turn up at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock. What part of the game do you want to turn up at? You know? No way. So when you haven't done it, when you've done little, your growth is big.
Yeah.
When you've done a lot, it's hard to put a lot on.
Yeah.
So our first few years, we were lucky to have John Worsfold, who just ate them up.
Yeah.
And John was always like, he just needed weights and he'd become big.
Yep.
Guy McKenna. So Dean Kemp, for instance, I think he started at 78 kilos and he finished at 78 kilos.
Yeah.
Didn't put an ounce on, but great strength on.
Yep.
He just becomes strong. So we really undertook a really big weight program, and we built on that. And once that was laid in, then players that come to the club, they just looked at Worsfold and McKenna's and Jakovic's and these. They go, "Wow."
It was like battle armour.
Well, you have to. I wanted a complete side. I didn't want to go out there and get mauled in Victoria Park or Windy Hill or Moorabbin, because we had running and we had football, but we couldn't match it with them. So you've got to be complete to be a complete player.
Yeah, that hasn't. And do you see that now? I mean, a lot of people say the game's changed a heap in 15 years, 10 years, 5 years with all the tactics and the structures they have. Do you watch it and say, at its most pure level, it's still very similar to the game you were coaching as a 30-year-old?
The 30-year-old, no, that's changed.
Yeah.
Because
it was so one-on-one then.
It wasn't necessarily always one-on-one. You were able to coach. You can't coach these days. You coach before the game now, because you sit on your hands. 6-6-6. You're sitting there going, the supporters are going, get a man behind the goal. You sit my hands because I'm not allowed to do it.
That's true.
So, now you can't put the runner out there because, geez, we don't want too many people on the bloody ground.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd have the runner fed and he'd come off exhausted. I'd kill 3 runners over the season. We'd be burying them. Ask Rob Wiley. So
I guess modern game.
That annoys the hell out of me. Nothing outside of the game itself.
Yeah.
Outside of those things I've spoken about. Next word is the modern game.
I'm feeling like a young journo here.
Fair income. The modern game. Save me, will you? What? We didn't defend. We didn't kick goals. We didn't defend. We didn't take big marks. We didn't run the ball.
We argue about this quite a lot.
Fair income. Just nothing. It's the modern game. What part's the modern game? It's modern because it's on at 2 o'clock today, and not 10 past 2, which we use yet. No, they're the athletes. My boys train longer and harder than what they do today.
Yeah,
because you know why? The Players Association tell you when you can do it. I have training camps going in October, November, and come back and the boys would be just knackered from the training camps, and then we'd give them a week off and then we'd back into it to one day before Christmas. Now, you celebrate Christmas, about 8 days beforehand?
Yeah, 8 or 10, yeah.
What is it?
About 8 or 10, yeah, depends.
And when you come back, you poor darlings?
We get 3 weeks off.
3 weeks. Oh.
A lot of adios.
Is that long enough, you reckon?
I'd rather 4 or 5.
Yeah, I'd give you 3 days. But that's the trouble.
Yeah.
And so
it is highly regulated.
Don't worry. I have a theory on the injuries that go on there because there's fatigue injuries.
Yeah.
I detested losing players on the training track.
Yeah.
But I wasn't prepared for the match day. If you got hurt in the match day, you got a shoulder or broken collarbone, well, that's part of the game.
Yeah, correct.
But I had no worries about instigating a game structure because I was able to do a bit before Christmas and a hell of a lot after Christmas because I had players.
Yeah.
You're a baby, you don't know. You'd be nappies when I was doing all this.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't even been a thought, mate.
That me saying modern game just gave me a flashback, and I almost got a tingle up my spine to when the young Jay Clark, who's now gone on to bigger and better things, said to you in a Collingwood presser, "Did your boys come to play today?" Do you remember?
Did he? Oh, well, no,
and did you give it to him?
Someone did ask me that thing. Oh, no, they're going to sit in their cars out the front waiting. Yeah.
Can I just take you there quickly? Looking back now, you're pretty tough on the journos. Or here's my take on it, because I caught the end of you as a coach, and some counterparts of mine that Rob Waters and those guys had come through with Christie, and And you did have a reputation. If a question, it was a shit-house question or one that didn't make sense or one that didn't have a degree of respect attached to it,
or was it a question or a statement?
Or a statement. You would go the journo, and you really went a few and had a few shaking. I got the advice to come and introduce myself. Nick Butler's my name. When you at Channel 10, played a few games at Port Adelaide Magpies. Instant respect. But you enjoyed that I introduced myself before asking the questions, which was a great tip because you never really gave it to me. But Mark Stevens, you had him shaking a few times.
Well, I get on really well.
How do you look back on it now?
I get on very well with him.
Yeah.
We get on really well because, he's a Footscray boy and I feel got a still great soft spot for the Dogs.
Those post-game presses that were live on 7.
It was almost a game.
Yeah.
And I think he enjoyed it and I enjoyed it, particularly if we won. I didn't like it when we lost.
Yeah.
But you got all day and then you watch the match to think about your questions.
Yep.
I'll be very honest. I know I coached for over 30 years and it was a complete shock every game when the media manager came and said, Mick, you got a press conference. You think I'd get used to thinking that there's a press conference?
Yeah.
I'd go, is it? I was so shocked. And also I wasn't prepared.
Yeah.
But when I walked in there, I expected that because that's not my role. My role is to coach. Your role is to get your questions right and then ask me, and I'll go, "Yep, that's a good question. I'll answer it." But if there's got what used to get me is they have 4 questions. I'd answer the 3 of them in the first question. Then they'd ask the second one, which is the one I'd go, really?
It's fantastic.
What world we in?
Yeah.
What do you think of all day?
And you were just being honest. You just weren't
Try to be honest.
mollycoddling the reporters. When the heat was on, a bit like his coach now, were you up for it more? Were you sort of ready to pounce on a disrespectful question or one that you thought was out of line? It seemed like that.
Yeah, but I've got to say, look, it was such a small part of coaching.
Yeah.
And it was the last thing I thought about. I didn't go to bed at night thinking, geez, what questions am I going to get tomorrow? It was more a case of, if this bloke's doing a bit of damage, how am I going to, who's next in line to play on it? Yeah. So with all due respects, it's an important part of the game, and I understand that, but it's for the glory hunters from 15 minutes after I finish the game to 15 minutes later when I'm walking out going, wow, now what?
Yeah.
So it's sort of 15 minutes of nondescript bullshit to me.
Yeah. And geez, we used to love it though. We miss it a bit because the coaches are pretty nice. So Ross Lyon will still give you.
Ross gave you a bit of shit last week. Didn't he?
I still see this with coaches doing this. Bloody hell, if you got time to do that, I didn't think about who was watching, who was on it. It'd come out. My poor mum, she used to say to me, "You're not going to swear in today." But Mum, I would never swear in the box. Never swear.
Mick, can I take you back to 2010? I was a St Kilda supporter growing up. I was at the grand final replay. I distinctly remember leaving at 3/4 time with my mum. We drove up from Sale, and I think we were halfway back to Sale by the time you guys had won that. What was the week like? Obviously, you gear up. So much of the year is built towards this grand final. The week must be massive, the parade, all that. How did you get the boys back up for another week? Was there any strategies you implemented?
No, there was outside of the fact that we didn't have to worry about a parade. That was probably the thing. And the other thing is, straight off the game, you guys may or may not know, and you probably do know, there was an AFL official come straight over to me and said, don't go to your rooms because there's sewers bubbled up through the things.
I was boundary riding. It stunk. There was shit in the rooms.
Yeah, well, I didn't know that. Yeah.
I had no idea about that.
So what? You go, okay, fine, what are we doing? We're going across the Richmond rooms. You go to Richmond rooms and the other rooms. I'm going, fine, I've played 8 years with the Tigers, so I'm happy going back there.
Yeah.
So, but on the fact that, this could go on forever, but with the last ball up, a ball in, I knew we couldn't win it, but they could. Because it was in a position where they get it in market, they kick a point, they win the premierships. We have a ball. You need Anthony Rocker playing to kick the ball to have a shot at.
Yeah.
So that was my major concern, was that last stoppage. And when it was a draw, it was in my mind, and which again Jeff Walsh, our team manager, and Eddie Maguire, and he had to say also, we just knew that I'm not going to waste tonight. We're all going back to the function. It's going to be half time. And my heart of hearts was I was going to spin. It was going to be half time.
Yep.
players, no alcohol, drink, eat what you like, enjoy your company with your parents, your loved ones. Turn up tomorrow morning, we go through, the warm down recovery, and then we start training again. And St Kilda didn't, which was quite amazing, because I just think it would have bottled them up, and you can't last for 2 weeks doing that. So I thought, no, let's get out and open, and let's have another fling at half time. So
good psychology in hindsight.
Well,
I think it was winning psychology.
So I coached a few finals, and I coached a few draws. So, I coached 3 draws in finals. I was
1990 Collingwood,
2007 and 2010. But I was also fortunate that I coached 52 finals.
Yeah.
So you get.
Wasn't your first rodeo?
You get a little bit used to think about how these players are going to react. It's not about you. And I've always said to every young coach I ever talk to, just remember, when you go through the doors of MCG, there's 100,000 people going to watch the players. They're not there to watch you.
Yeah.
So just make sure everything is directed at the players to get the best of the players. If you fall over at the end of it, bad luck.
Yeah.
But so that's basically what we did, was to get players to think the next level up, which was forget about, okay, we can't change the result, but get yourself ready for the next game.
On that love of the players, here's another modern term, right? There's to be a relationship coach. You were, and I've spoken to a lot of people that say that the relationship you had with them was, it's a cliche to say fatherly, but you took a genuine interest in their lives, not just their footy. How did you develop that? Was that from the start in the Bulldogs days, or did you learn that you need to be more than just X's and O's and yelling at them on game day?
Yeah, I don't think you can invent that. I don't think you can be what you're not.
Yeah.
So, look, I'll take credit for it, but it really was more the case of that's how I felt, that you just needed to get players to be more than just a footballer. But I'll say now, look, not every footballer loves Mick Malthouse. I'll give you the tip.
No.
I mean, the 24th player in today's football would be going, what a bastard.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not getting a game. 23rd player reckons on Christmas. Honestly.
That's how
because
it
he's
goes.
getting the game. So you're looking at 24, 5, 6 and 7 and go, no, can't stand him. And 28, 29, 30 are probably thinking, I'm just not quite there yet. So they're on side.
Yeah.
So that's 4 or 5 that you've got to play every now and again. Bring them into the side, let them love you a little bit.
The Rat Pack boys in particular, Mick. So I spoke to one of them today. I won't name him, but I said, was it all bullshit about how much Mick loved you, and describe it to me. And he said, they were just little things. Like, so this member of the Rat Pack said after a win, you came up to him and said, I know you're going to get on the piss tonight. I know that you guys are. Don't take the others with you. So not that it was rules for some and rules for others, but you knew that made them tick. They'd done their business on the field, were going to go out, and there was a bit of an understanding, a little bit fatherly in that way. And he said, but you gave him a little, you give a dog a bone, it'll jump through hoops, and they jump through them for you.
Look, I always, if you're going to invent a rule, then you've got to follow the rule through. So if you don't have an alcohol rule, the alcohol rule to me was, if you're injured, reported, no, you know what you have to do. To get up next week, if you get knocked over and you get a couple of weeks, then, look, if I invited a player around, it was always a Monday or Tuesday night. And there'd be a bottle of red wine on the table. And I reckon the first time those players walked in, they go, this is a setup. We're a setup here. I go, no, I'm having one. Do you want one? Because much to the consternation of my fitness people, they'd go, oh, God, I said, mate, they're human. And if one likes a glass of red or a beer, I'll offer it to them on Tuesday night for a Saturday game. And if they have it, and most of them by the end of the night, they go, yep, we've had a beer and we've had a red and we've had a good time to talk about things. So those players, what am I going to do? Go home and get to bed tuck yourself in at 10 o'clock. Well, that wasn't going to happen. Yeah. So the rules are stringent if you are injured or reported or suspended. But if you're not, just don't be in a bad place at a bad time. And under those circumstances, I thought most of my players were pretty good. There's tram lines. I used to like them to say in the tram lines. Every now and again, someone jumps out of it. Yep, that happens. It's life. If we're going to judge everyone on a one single chance, then we're going to be a very disappointed nation, because everyone that I know who's ever succeeded in life has jumped those tram tracks from time to time and been brought back inside. As more they get brought back inside and more they get straighter and straighter. In the end, you're just going to stay there. I know you're going to stay there.
Yeah.
So boys are boys. And they don't grow until their mid-20s, I don't reckon. Their brain cells aren't exactly functional.
I'll probably
a bit like
You always have that young man
like
empathy.
a 35-year-old ruckman. They start to get it around about 36.
If their bodies aren't shot.
With ruckman, that's right.
So you consistently try to remember what it was like to be a player and those pressures.
I didn't drink.
No, well, and that's the little bit of irony in it. Yeah.
Yeah, but you still got to live your life.
Yeah.
And look, see, going from a player into coaching, and a little bit later on, I know that, there was a big thing on drugs in society. There wasn't drugs in society when I was playing. It was the alcohol.
Yeah, yeah.
And we'd turn up on Sunday morning, and half the blokes, like they'd have a belly full.
Yeah.
We'd walk around the tan, or we'd have a game of soccer or something like that, and they'd go back to work on Monday. We'd train on Monday night. They go to work on Tuesday, train on Tuesday night, have Wednesday off, train on Thursday, and then Friday's fish and chips, and you'd have the game at 2:10. And you'd go to the local, you'd find a pub here in Richmond, because that was where we 4 or 5 different pubs, and you'd go there with your family and you enjoy each other's company. That's the way it worked.
Yeah.
And we fronted up again for the next week.
Yeah, yeah. And
every now and again there'd be a game on Tuesday night called the national competition or whatever it was.
Yeah, yeah.
You had it at Waverley, and you'd get home and you'd have
Escort Cup.
whatever it was. I remember I'd work, get home, and you think, God, I feel like it there at 8 o'clock in the morning or 9 o'clock in the morning at lunchtime. I'm thinking, yeah, good go. 5 o'clock, I'm thinking, do I really want to go out to Waverley and play football? But you had to.
8 degrees. Yeah. Very
On
good.
a good night.
Yeah. Oh, look, in that way, it has changed a lot. Anzac Day is upon us on Friday, and just before we get to what the day means in a footy sense, a little clip came away of the spray you gave the Pies in 05. One of the great three-quarter time cooks. You sat them down, fingers in faces. Still room for that in modern footy?
Apparently not.
Yeah. Thoughts on that?
They cry. Well, that's what I've been told. I had a bloke say to me the other day, he said, I won't name him. He said, you had coached by Mick Malthouse. Yeah. Look, I really love Mick, but he made me cry. God, save me, will you? Just save me. Honestly, I mean, you adjust according to time. Like if I was coaching now, you adjust to what's in front of you.
Yeah.
I mean, I coached in 84.
Yeah.
I started in 72. 72, a couple of blokes would come and have a fag at half time. I mean, do you really reckon that happened in 84? No, it didn't. So, so there, and player would pull out the thing, look at the thing, I put 6 or 7, I put $10 on that horse, and, okay, put back in there for it. Because the race results are wrong.
Yeah, they were on the scoreboard.
So that was in, 72 when I first started.
Yeah.
So that didn't happen in 84. So there's a big change. Then from 84 to 2015, I've seen the game ebb and flow and grow and become more professional, and therefore you adjust, and that's why would Bradman still make runs today? I'm not putting myself in the Bradman thing, but what I'm saying, would Bradman make runs?
I reckon he'd find a way.
I think would Dennis still take wickets?
Probably.
Absolutely.
Biggest spray you've ever given off the back of that. Do you remember one that stands out as, that was the biggest or the hardest I've ever gone at someone?
West Coast boys would tell you I have, and I think Collingwood boys would tell you I have, but no, I'll let them talk about that. I'm not. There's some that you're just, that you're just going to have to, give it them just to see if we can get a bit of a liven up. But I'm a reader of eyes.
Yeah,
and I know, I come back from a three-quarter time speech one day, and I said to Mexican, we're in real trouble. We're in front.
Yeah.
And they've gone, how can you tell? I said, because they're dull. They're dead. There's just nothing there to suggest to me that we're going to, and we got beaten. Because, it's all in the eyes.
Interesting.
And you can feel that the right players are on. Can you win that game? Well, the opposition might be better than you, but you don't have a crack. You're not going to wilt, But I have had some ripping responses from players, and they because I'm inspired by my players.
Yeah,
I just got inspired by their bravery and their some of the comments they make, and the interaction between them and this sort of stuff. And you walk into a room and I'm thinking, oh, you know, we're a 5-goal better side than this mob, and I'm not liking what I'm seeing here. So you think, right, I'm going to shuffle into have a real crack here. So you're having a real crack, and then I said to one bloke, I said, all right, I pulled this out of the bag and go, what are you going to do for the side today? And this player said, well, he said, forget about marking. He said, I'm just going to lean on this bloke and punch the shit out of this thing every time the ball comes down, just destroy his confidence. The boys are in and go, yeah, that's, believe it or not, that's how blokes worked on this. Yeah. And I said, well, what are you going to do? And I'm thinking, right, they're starting to bubble along a bit. And he goes, well, I said, he said, if anyone gets around, I'm straight over the top of them. I don't care what's there, I'm going straight over the top of them. Yeah. I thought, well, just maybe, because I don't want to look at you. I want to be out. I've gone, looked around, I've gone, right, this is the creme de creme. I said, what are you going to do? He's gone. And I can see all the other players, because I've got them now, and the other players have got, I think we'll start laughing, right? And this bloke goes, I'm going to try hard. I'm going, I said, you're going to try hard, are you? He said, no. He said, I'm going to try really, really hard. I'll go, right, boys, let's go. Because I knew by that stage there were blokes
trying not to piss.
So, and we did better win. But it was, you've got to pick your moment. And it sounds like I've won every game. Far from won every game. You want to win every game, but you don't. Yeah.
I got a little quote from one for Charlie. He said, as far as there was a bit of turn of phrase and humour in your sprays from time to time, and whoever I spoke to today said you were going around the room a bit and you pointed to a centre forward or a key forward and you said, how are you today, player X? And he goes, I did fuck all. And you go, fuck all? Worse than that, you did fuck all.
Well, I was taking a leaf off that player.
The other one, just for Charlie, I like educating these kids a bit, that to try to get our heads around the Brad Hardy incident now. So you've had a bit of a blue with Brad, both Hall of Famers now. So Brad...
Same night.
Same night. He's ended up winning he won a Brownlow at that stage?
Yeah.
He had. So Brownlow medalist, he's had a blue with Mick. Brad Hardy's taken his jumper off and waved it at the coach's box and pretty much walked off the ground.
Well, he was taken off.
He was taken off and waved his jumper.
What? Well, you coached him.
Well, I was coaching him. It happened in a league game of footy. Are you kidding? Can you imagine doing that to Clarko?
Mate.
Was he there next year?
Oh, he was not.
I wouldn't do
Went
it to
to Brisbane.
That's right.
There you go.
It's an old cliche. It's better to please the fool than tease the fool. So regardless of what you think of your coach, just listen and do what he wants you to do. And some stage during the week saying, look, I'm a bit confused about this, you had a crack at me here, or look, I'm not familiar with this position. Then you've got to say to coach. Yep. Most coaches are insane match day.
Yeah.
Well, I was. So nobody's asking me on match day.
Yeah.
Because what I say is the way it's got to be, and then we settle down and we have a think about things. And that's most coaches are like that.
Yeah, can you agree with that?
Got to let you go shortly. We could talk to you for 2 hours, fair income, but we won't. Got a few mates my age, 40 now, starting their coaching careers, senior coaching. Few have been doing it for 5 or 6 years. Is there a bit of advice, one key part that you picked up 20 years in that you wish you had from the start? Well,
I think that from the start, there's one key thing that you've got to remember. Every player is different.
Yep.
And every player has an X factor. And every player wants to be rewarded for him doing that X factor. So it may well be a bloke who's just a good hand passer and a shit kick, and he goes a couple of good hand passes that result in you pat him on the back so that his X factor remains an X factor. Because if he botches one of his hand passes up and he puts it on the deck and you have a crack at him, his X factor's gone. So his confidence is gone. So his things that he's weak in become weaker, and his things that he's strong in, he becomes frightened of. You've got to always reward those that are good at what they do and reward them for it, and make sure the players know, I've got the best hand passer in the competition here. And it makes that bloke might be the 50th best hand passer, but he thinks he is.
Yep.
You've got to make people think that they're better than what they are, not worse than what they are. And remember that everyone is different. They don't. Some have got issues on the ground, off the ground, at work, or whatever. So I've coached hundreds of players, and not one is the same as the other. Every one of them have been different.
There you go. It's good advice.
Mick, I've got one more for you. This book, so Nick's spoken a lot about this 1%ers book. We actually used to read, when we started out podcasting together, we used to read one little quote from this book every week. So it's quite surreal that you're actually on here now speaking to us. But do you remember writing this? How did it come about?
Well, I stole a lot of them, as you can see, because 1% is 1% is probably from the word go. Yeah, I was going to one of my trips to England and sitting in the cattle class, and I thought, you know what, this takes, what was it take, 14, 15 hours, whatever
Probably
it was.
more back then.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah,
We still had planes in those days. So we weren't going by ship. We weren't going by ship.
Only get the side eye, yeah.
And I decided to stay up and go through it in sections that related to general, to mid, to back, to forward, and write them all out, and then keep adding them and just subtracting and just trying to formulate something. And when I got back, got it typed up.
Did you ever get it? So it's a shabby little thing. My old man gave it to me when I was about 10 and said, read a few of these every night. And I reckon I did for the first few, but it didn't make much sense.
There you go.
But I'll tell you what, by the time I was 27, it made perfect sense, but my body was shot and I couldn't get a kick.
Yeah.
So what I will say to you is you said a lot of these aren't relevant anymore. We were mucking around on our summer podcast with this, and an AFLW player, Grace Egan is her name, plays at the Tigers. She's as tough as teak, top 5 in the BNF every year, emailed me and said, could I please get a copy of that? So there's still, we might have to do a bit of a deal here. We'll get it printed up, make it look sexy.
Yeah, well, you give me one because I haven't got, if you can find another one, let me know because
Did it ever go to print? Mick, so how has my old man got his hands on this?
I don't know, really. I think it went somewhere. It ended. Oh, I see. That was sort of stapled together like that. This could be the original. You might be going.
Yeah,
we might
gold mine
do a deal here.
But I so when you got grandchildren who play football or play sport in general, it's you take out the football and put other stuff in there. It's quite relevant to life in many respects. So, and I think the simplicity of sport. It's when you make it a complex sport, you're going to lose a lot of people because they're not attuned to that.
Yeah.
They want to be able to go down the race and come off the race knowing they've given their best and they're not complicated by 1,000 things that are going through their mind and detract from how they want to play. Laces tied up on the outside or inside or whatever side, put shorts up, this or something. That's common sense stuff.
Don't have a big lunch on training day.
Well, there you
want
go.
a big palmer in your guts. He was questioning me on that one. Going, you need the protein. I said, no, you don't.
No.
Chips and desserts.
I think our dietitian would probably say different now.
Yeah, well, it may well be.
Yeah.
But how many games has a dietitian played?
Exactly right. It's very
Exactly
fair.
right.
It's very, very fair.
Absolute final one from me. Bloke I spoke to today said the other thing Mick did for me, speaking for him, was he got off the rails for a year or two in his career, and you challenged him and said, stop being such a weak so-and-so. Get out of it. I still need you. I can get you back. And you got him back, and he played in the flag. Jamarra Ugle-Hagan at the moment, how would you handle it?
Yeah, well, that's a real. First of all, you got to get to the core of the problem. Now, without going into detail, there's got to be a core problem. Yep. Then you've got to address the problem. So there's fluffy stuff around it because you're only going to get the fluffy stuff fixed and it's still going to the core of the problem is still there. And you've got to do it together. Or if he's not that trusting of you, he's got to do it with someone else that's trusting in their football club. It's not an easy task for Luke Beveridge. Luke is an outstanding person, an outstanding coach. Make no mistake about that. If that player does not want to admit to the problem, you have got a serious problem because how do you fix something that he isn't aware? And has he got a love for the game?
Yeah.
Has he got a passion for the hard work? Because the game itself, to succeed, there's not a player that's played that I know who has succeeded hasn't done it through hard work as well as his ability. Yeah. Ability is just a byproduct of your parents giving you the genes to get it, right?
Yeah.
The next part is that you have to work hard at your game.
Right. You got to love that grind.
You've got to love the grind. Then you've got to love what the output is, to get, there's a book called The Dogs of War, Frederick Forsyth. And I'm not a great reader, but it would be 400 pages long.
Yeah.
and you read it and you read it and you read it, 396th page is where the action comes in. The 396 pages prior to that is all about preparation and getting things ready for that little battle. It's absorbing. You go, wow, I didn't think 396 pages of a book can be that bloody good.
Yeah, right.
But that's life. You play for 2 hours. Have you sat down with anyone and timed how long that ball is in your hands for that 80 minutes?
Nah, but it'd be something, it'd be 20 seconds, 15
Even
minutes.
on your best games.
It'd be bugger all.
Greg Williams did it, didn't he? He had 40
probably
touches.
Larky's got the football and he's taken 8 marks and having 8 shots. He's got the ball 4 minutes longer than what you've got.
Yeah, yeah.
Unless you're having a shot.
Yeah.
Because you're down on the back end and you might get it and the umpire goes, play on.
Yeah.
You're 5 seconds. So
Yeah.
you kick it in 10 times, there's 50 seconds. So don't cut yourself short. But what I'm saying is, for the time you've got the football,
Yeah.
for the time you train,
Oh, it's a massive difference.
but you go out there for 2 hours. So
Yeah.
what are you doing with the other hour and a half to an hour and 3/4? Are you helping out? Are you running around? Are you making a nuisance of yourself? Are you you ask yourself that question, and then you've come to the conclusion that when that ball's in your hands, don't waste it. Okay, I'm going to keep practicing because if I'm only going to have the ball 15 times, I want to make sure that my teammates get it the other 15 times. I kick it, they mark it.
Yeah.
I hand pass it, they get it. Because it's not, you work so hard for 15 possessions.
Yeah.
And you've got the ball in your hands for probably a split second.
Yeah. Very sound advice.
Final one from me. On him, he's a bit down
Final
in the dumps at the moment. No, absolute final. How do you get them through? They're the one copying it at the moment, the Roos. They've got talent. They're probably not firing on all cylinders. Media pressure is starting.
I look at it. I've looked at sides. I coached Footscray in 1987 for one of my best years in coaching. We lost the first 3 games by 42 goals. Why is it one of my best years? We missed out in the finals by, I think, a half game. Why? Because we then woke up that we have to start having full. We were dejected and we felt sorry for ourselves. First 3 games, Then we played the 4th game. We played the reigning premiers, and we beat them. Got my better player to tag their better player, and this and that. And all of a sudden, we didn't win enough games to make the final 4. But I'd come away thinking I lost so many players because the club was broke, didn't have any money, couldn't keep players, brought up a lot of kids, and we just had this infectious enthusiasm to want to do things well. I'm looking at a very dejected team that when it turns, the shoulders hunch, head drops, and there's no belief. That's what I'm watching at the moment. Clarkson cannot do any more, in my book, than look at it and go, "What you've got to turn it around. Players got to turn it around. You're not the worst side. The worst side compared to the top side is not more than probably on a very, very good day, 10 goals. On an average day, probably 5 or 6. So instead of letting them kick 20, keep them to 15 or 12 and see if you can kick 6 or 7. You only get beaten by 3 or 4. And you learn then to your win goes.
Yeah.
That's it.
Very
Hang
well.
in. Mick, wisdom, humour, advice. We've gone over time, but thank you so much. Didn't even get to Anzac Day, but we'll talk about that a lot. We've got a nice bottle of red for you, Gibson Shiraz from the Barossa, and a 200-plus hat. So you're a friend of the big boys
Sure,
now.
you love the hat, mate.
And
Thank you so very much.
thank you so much for giving us a bit of your
Thanks
time.
so much, Mick.
It's brilliant. I love it. So, and all the very best.
Thank you, Mick. I
Yeah.
appreciate
Yeah,
it very
Look,
much.
Don't drop your head. Don't be the one who drops his head.
I'll definitely not.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mick.
Pleasure.